If you've never read a James Patterson book before and you're wondering where to start, Alone Came a Spider may be the book for you.
Recently, I asked myself, what is it about James Patterson that makes him the best-selling author in the entire world? You've obviously probably heard by this point that a lot of the books that he writes, he co-authors. So it'll be like a concept that he's come up with, and then he will have another author who actually writes the book. So his role essentially turns to being someone who is like the producer of it. He kind of directs where it goes, and then he approves the final copy. So that I was not a huge fan of. And so I decided a long time ago that wasn't never going to read any of his books, because what kind of an author does that? Well, apparently an author who is also a really savvy businessman. Whatever your feelings about that are, his first books were actually written by him completely. So if you really want to know what James Patterson's books and what his works are like, I highly recommend starting off with Alone Came a Spider. So I'm going to give you a brief synopsis of this book, and then I'm going to tell you whether or not this is the book for you to start off with if you're wanting to get into James Patterson and you actually want to read some James Patterson. So first of all, this is like a murder mystery crime novel. It's not a huge mystery, but there are a lot of twists and turns that keep you guessing throughout. You have the main detective, who is Alex Cross, and if you've ever heard of James Patterson, you've probably heard of Alex Cross because he has an entire series of books, very large series of books, centered around this character, Alex Cross, this detective, who's also like a psychologist, and so he's got a lot of different elements to him as a main character that keep the story interesting. Now, aside from that, we have one main murder kidnapping mystery that we're really trying to figure out, and our main character Alex Cross is trying to figure out. There's a guy called Gary Sanji who is this really complex villain, probably one of the most complex characters that I've read, villain or not, in any book. Alex Cross is trying to determine what has happened, how to potentially save the people or the children that have been kidnapped, and solve this case, close this case. So it's a lot going on, a whole lot of questions revolving around these two characters, and I actually found the villain extremely interesting in this one. I think that James Patterson did a ton of research when he was writing this, and from what I understand, he does a ton of research, period, on any of his stories to really make this a accurate characterization of the villain in this book. Overall, the story itself moves at a really fast pace. The chapters are not very long, which I love. You can sit down and read a chapter or two if you're able to just read a chapter or two, and kind of pick it up just at a later date. But what's cool about this is that it's one of those books that, for me personally, I didn't think I'd like. I'm not really into the whole mystery genre. I really have a tough time with like Agatha Christie and a lot of the other authors that do this because it's just not for me. But I loved this because this reminded me so much of like The Blacklist and shows that are just very fast paced, but that also keep your interest and hook you from the start. I would sit down and read a chapter and be like, okay, I've got 10 minutes, I'm going to read a chapter or two, and then find myself like an hour and a half later still reading because it's so hard to put this down. And you see the previews for James Patterson books, and it's like the unput-downable book, the hard-to-stop reading book. And I was just thinking, like, there's no way that his books are that good, that they're that hard to stop reading, that they're that hard to put down. And then I find myself just reading continuously to the next chapter, because I want to know what happens. That's probably one of the main reasons that his books sell so well, is because they're long books. A lot of them are. Like this one, this is not a short book. It's around 500 pages, I think, but it goes by so quickly. I've finished this book quicker than I finish a lot of shorter books, 200 and 300 page books that take me forever to finish because they just don't interest me. This was fantastic. This was a great way to jump into James Patterson as an author. I'm definitely looking forward to reading more of his work. I read a book shot by him. It wasn't bad, but this is so in-depth and amazing that I think this is the perfect book for anybody who's interested in even giving James Patterson a chance. I'm glad I gave him a chance, but anybody who wants to give James Patterson's work a chance, this is the perfect book to do it with. Let me know in the comments section what you think about James Patterson and if you've read any of his books before. If you have, what do you think? I'm going to put a link in the description to where you can get an awesome deal on a copy of this book for yourself. It's my affiliate link helps out a lot. Also, giving this video a thumbs up helps out a lot. Subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you guys later.